Hello, happy Halloween. Welcome to True Crime and Java Chat with Kelly. How is everybody doing today? Friday and it's Halloween. Wonderful. My favorite time of year, but November's creeping in. So this is the last day of my favorite month. And I've been off on vacation. So I have not been up to date on my episodes, but we drove from Illinois to Colorado. I saw the Villisca Axe Murder House. We stopped there on the way. And then as we were in Colorado, we saw quite a bit of that state in the south, in the north, in the west, east, and got to see the Stanley Hotel before we came back, 17-hour drive. So very good. I have the details all in my Patreon. There is a $3 tier and a $5 tier in Patreon, and my Patreon people just enjoyed a free month. So, because I was on vacation, so I gave them all a free month. I usually do that when I don't keep up with my episodes if something happens where I get sick or I'm traveling. So thank you all for your supporters in Patreon. Spotify Premium does not allow me to do a free month. I don't exactly know why. If there is a way, I don't know how to do it. All I do is suspend a month of billing is how I do it. And, but those episodes are also on Spotify Premium. They're both, Spotify Premium is $5. There is no $3 tier on that. So Patreon has both. So if you are interested, hop on over to Patreon and join. Okay. I am drinking, of course, Java Mama pumpkin spice latte. I had to drink that today. It is Halloween. I just ordered if you're a member of my Facebook page, Kelly's Coffee and Tea Spot, Dirty Chocolate Chai is amazing. I just ordered it. I got it in the 3 little samplers, and I also got sweet buttered pecan, another good one. Plus this one, pumpkin spice latte. So I love them all, but that dirty chocolate chai is probably my favorite, besides everything else that I love for Java Mama. It is clean and green, air roasted, so you don't taste the grinder. Sorry, I forgot what I was saying. You don't taste the grinder, you taste the entire bean because they are air roasted. Okay. Here we go. I had to get a drink coffee there. I'm covering the case of Jessica Dishon. Now, I did not do a Halloween one case this year because I've done them last year, and there's so many other podcasts that do those. So I try to stay in the Midwest as much as I possibly can for this. But if you have any suggestions and you want me to cover them on this podcast, I will definitely do that, no matter where they're at. If they're a listener suggestion, I will cover it. So, this case, my sources are Murder in the Heartland on ID, usatoday.com, WHAS11.com, and belivewire.com. So that's BELIVEWIRE.com. This takes place in Shepherdsville, Kentucky, which is in Bullitt County. Now, Shepherdsville is known for their bourbon, which I did not know. Yum, yum. So that is a very good sipping liquor, and I always like to mix it with something, but like amaretto or something like that. But very good for the old-fashioned drink, mixed drink. But Jessica Dishon was born May 2nd of 1982 to her father, Mike, and her mother, Edna. She was the oldest of 3 kids. She had 2 brothers, Christopher and Michael. In 1999, she was a high school senior. She had a best friend named Sarah, and they worked at a Hardee's restaurant. She saved her money from working there and bought a brand new Pontiac. So here she was, a senior, and it was a red Pontiac. Brand new car. Oh my gosh. She's living her life. On Friday, September 10th of that year, 1999, Her best friend had not heard from her because they always met for breakfast in the morning before school. And then they would go to school, and then they both worked at the Hardee's restaurant. Jessica did not make it to work later that day either. Now, Edna, her mother, came home from work early that afternoon, noticed Jessica's car was in the driveway. She looked in, saw that her phone was in the car. I'm not sure if it was unlocked. I'm thinking it was unlocked because she was able to get to the phone, and she saw that the numbers 9 and 1 were dialed, like she was getting ready to call 911. Now, Mike, her father, came home, and he also saw the same thing, and all of her belongings were inside the car, her books, her backpack, her work uniform. So they called the school to check to see if she'd been there, but she had not. They went to file a missing persons report. Of course, they say, oh, she could have run away. Okay, without her car or her purse. If she ran away, wouldn't she take her car? Now, this right here should have been a clue, and they should have gotten on it right away. But you know how it is, 24 hours. They wouldn't do anything until the next morning in case she comes back, which is so irritating. And I think those laws have changed now, which they should have. They should be changed because this is ridiculous. But her dad was floored about this. She was not a runaway. So, a search party ensued after 48 hours of Jessica missing. They rode horses, they took dogs with them, but nothing turned up. Mike and his brother Stanley Dishon went to the river bottoms to search, because that was, right around that area. And Sarah told the police about Amanda Carter. Now, Sarah was the best friend that she worked with. And Amanda Carter was their manager at the restaurant. Now, Amanda, of course, was about their age, not much older. And she was dating a guy named Mike Wally. Well, they broke up, and then Mike Wally started dating Jessica. And Amanda was pissed. She was calling Jessica to harass her about it. And Jessica told her, I'm not scared of you. You know where I live. So, that would be me too. So, this is the first suspect they heard about. Well, they questioned Amanda and the ex-boyfriend, Mike Wally, because him and Jessica had also, I think, been broken up about this time she went missing. Now, their alibis checked out. So then the FBI came in to question all the high school students because, with high school, rumors go around, even with adults in the workplace. So there was another boyfriend Jessica had named Craig Weber. Now, he was just kind of a casual dating relationship. It wasn't anything serious. She met him a few days. It sounded to me like she just liked him, but he was more interested in her than she was him. She met him a few days before she went missing. And then he was calling her over and over that night before September 10th. He said Jessica hooked up with his brother named Troy. Whether that is true, who knows? This is what he said. And that is what made him mad, because she was starting to like the brother. Well, she also owed some money to a guy named Jason Dunford. And she didn't pay him back right away. So this guy was a suspect. Rumors went around about him, of course. He was kind of a big guy, pale looking. Jessica and Sarah went to visit him, Jason, the night before September 10th. So they visited him the night before she went missing. They still weren't even sure if Jessica was deceased by then. She hadn't been found. So they couldn't really say, didn't have much to go on, and they couldn't really say this was a murder, or they were, they didn't know what had happened. But on September 27th, school bus driver Karen Hobbs was driving the bus and just happened to catch a glimpse of some clothes or blue jeans on the ground by the river bottoms. Well, later after she got off work, she got in her car, came back to that area. She found Jessica's body by a tree. And Jessica's body had been 7 miles from her home. Her jeans were down around one leg as she was nude, and her legs were spread. She had died of, one source said strangulation. Another source said that she had been beaten to death. Karen called the police. Suspicion grew about her body being moved because they searched all over that area and they didn't find anything leading to her disappearance or foul play. Jason Dunford's black Camaro was supposedly seen in the road by Jessica's home the morning she went missing. Now, this came from kids on the school bus because they were on the school bus, riding the bus, and they saw his black Camaro. Now, remember, Jessica and Sarah met with him the night before. The FBI started investigating him as well as Craig, who was the guy that kept calling Jessica over and over and over again. Now, her mother Edna and her father Mike told them to look into their neighbors. Their neighbors were the Brooks family. They have had a long family feud with them. Bucky Brooks was the head of that household, and he owned property that was right up to the Dishon's home. It sounded like they were kind of butt up against it. And that was the main problem with their feuding. You know, property lines, all that. Bucky Brooks was parked by the Dishon home and said he was cutting cattails when Edna asked him what he was doing that night because he never comes onto their, like, that close to their property. And that was the night of September 10th. He said she told him they don't have any cattails. And so what was he doing up there that night? Now, remember, September 10th is the night that she went missing that day. So this was later that night. So Mike went over to their house on their property, not in their house, went over to the property with a gun just in case he needed it for protection, but did not find anything. Plus, he already said, whoever did anything with my daughter, he was going to kill him. So Bucky would joke about Jessica being dead. This is another thing. He would call up their house and say things like, I took her, she's at the river bottoms, and please don't kill me, over and over. He failed a polygraph test 4 times, which is not admissible in court. And I know polygraph is it's one of those things that people are very skeptical about because they could be nervous. It is told that Bucky Brooks was slow mentally, but he was arrested for harassment, and then he was put out on bail. And it was like $10,000. It was like, wow, it's quite a bit of money for. I'm not sure exactly what he did, but I know that they were not a very high income family, but. They found Bucky's gloves and rope, which was the same rope on Jessica's body. Now, I didn't hear where they found that. I think it was on his own property, but it was the same type of rope. So now everything's pointing to him. Everybody, and I'm not saying like everybody, but many, many, many people in that area was looking at him. Even his wife was looking at him as the suspect. So there was enough to put Bucky Brooks on trial. His brother Joseph Brooks was also on trial for tampering with evidence. And I did not read into much with him, but I don't know how he was tampering with evidence. But on January 29th, 2003, there was a mistrial. Neither Brooks brothers were found guilty. Neither one of them. So they went back, started all over with the investigation. They found out that Craig Weber was in school that day that Jessica went missing, so he was cleared. They did DNA testing on Jason Dunford's car, but it was inconclusive. I don't know what kind of DNA it was. They did not say. On April 27th of 2005, the lead investigator wrote a letter that was published in the local paper to the person responsible, pleading for them to confess as her 23rd birthday was approaching, Jessica's birthday. Plus, a $10,000 reward was offered. Mike still thought Bucky Brooks was responsible. Now, a new sheriff took over in 2010. Jessica's case was assigned to another detective from this new sheriff, and they were going to look into it because this new sheriff was also very, very familiar with this case. And this new detective found a jailhouse snitch on February 3rd of 2011. This jailhouse snitch offered information about someone who was never a suspect. This information would be something only the killer would know. So there was no deal that this inmate made. You know, usually they'll make a deal. Oh, well, I'll tell you if you'll reduce my sentence. But this inmate did not make any deals. Now, the person who killed Jessica was upset that she had a boyfriend and that the boyfriend and her were having sex, which is very strange because supposedly she was having sex with a boyfriend and he was jealous, and because he was also having sex with her. He was molesting her. He tortured her in a barn before killing her. The barn is the place where she would hang out with her friends. They'd party. I don't know what all they did. Of course, drink. That's what I did when I was a teenager. But they found a bed sheet in the barn, and then DNA. They ran DNA on it, but it was found inconclusive because it had been 10 years. Which they said 10 years, and I was thinking it was longer than that. But yeah, it was about 10 years. So the DNA was inconclusive. The killer named this inmate named was Stanley Dishon. He had moved her body from the barn to the river bottoms. And if you remember, this is her father's brother. Her uncle was molesting her. Stanley was arrested for the murder of Jessica Dishon. She was going to tell her dad that he was doing this to her. And her father would have killed him. It's his brother, but he would have killed him. During Bucky Brooks' trial, now get this, during Bucky's trial, the sheriff's office and the Commonwealth attorney had copies of a letter from a different inmate who shared his cell with Stanley. This inmate said that Stanley told him he and Jessica had dumped the body in the river bottoms. Now, I'm trying to figure this out because I read that this was all during Bucky's trial, that this inmate said this. But when was Stanley in prison? Because during Bucky's trial, Stanley wasn't even found. But I read that this happened during the Brooks trial. So there's some kind of problem with this whole thing that I read. And this was on one of my sources. But they had this letter with some other inmate. And the inmate said that Stanley told him he killed Jessica and dumped her body in the river bottoms. So Stanley must have been in jail before, and I never did find out what it was that he was in jail for. So I'm thinking it was of a different crime, because their other jailhouse snitch also knew him. So he had been in trouble before. The inmate said that he dumped her body in the river bottoms, and they did nothing with this letter, like I said. This should have been solved way sooner than it was. But a lot of times they don't want to believe an inmate because they think maybe this one was one that wanted a deal. Oh, yeah, if you let me out of jail. I don't know. But it's odd that they had this letter in their possession and nothing was done about it. And I'm thinking that they zeroed in on Bucky at the time since it was during his trial. Now, on January 22nd, 2015, Stanley, who was 55 years old, took a plea agreement for a reduced charge of manslaughter and 3 additional sex abuse charges on Jessica. Now, this is a sex offender. Okay? Keep that in mind. This is a sex offender. He was sentenced to only 20 years in prison, and he could be released by December 31st of 2028. That's 3 years. He says he's been wrongfully convicted. He did not kill Jessica. Now, excuse me, but you're still going to have to, I would think, register as a sex offender because there's so much evidence against him, and I don't think he should be out. I don't think any of these sex offenders should be out. I'm sorry, but when you kill somebody, no, you shouldn't be out. This is ridiculous. 20 years. Now, of course, he'll be in his 70s, but I'm pretty sure he's still living. Unfortunately, Jessica's father, Michael, died in December of 2022. Now, this is according to Legacy.com and Floral Hills Memorial Gardens online. He was only 63 years old. And I had to look for that because I wanted to make sure it was the same one, the same Michael. And it is from what I researched. Very, very sad. Because I guarantee you, I think if Stanley would have gotten out, in 3 years, like he will, I think Michael would have killed him. But, which is sad, that Michael died. Oh my gosh, that is horrible. And I'm pretty sure it is the same. Like I said, I looked and looked and looked to find out. And there was no photo with him on Legacy.com and Floral Hills Memorial Gardens online, but I went to find a grave. And it did say that Edna was his wife and Jessica was his daughter. So this is a horrible case. I don't know if you've heard of it. It sounded a little familiar to me, but I'm not sure if it's the same one that I've heard before. But I wanted to go ahead and talk about it and cover it and do a case for the end of October. Gosh, you just never know about people, you just never know. But anyway, I hope everybody has a wonderful Halloween. I started watching that Welcome to Derry on, trying to remember what it's on. I can't remember if it's Netflix or Peacock. It's one of them. If you have not seen, oh my gosh, that thing is weird. I've only watched one episode of it, and I'm kind of confused. But I think what it is, it talks about what happened before the movie, the story of It. So it's like a prequel kind of thing. It's kind of strange to me, man. Already, I'm like, I don't know about this. I'll keep watching it, but that was so weird. And if anybody out there's seen it, it's the part in the car at the beginning. I'm like, what is going on here? So that was weird. And then I started watching on Peacock the John Wayne Gacy, the new one, which actually is pretty good. It talks a lot more about the victims, and it shows flashbacks of course, it's actors doing it, but it's actually very good. A very good account of the victims and their lives. So I'm not through with that yet. It says it's only 8 episodes, which I thought it would be more, not unless there's more coming. I'm not sure. And I haven't watched them all yet. But I'm trying to think of, I watched the remake. Pass on this, but I watched the remake of The Hand That Rocks the Cradle. Watch the original. The original is way better than this remake. And I kept watching thinking, these women look familiar to me. And one of them was the main star in Long Legs. And then the other one I knew her from Cloverfield Lane, the one with John Goodman. And, so I didn't recognize her because she had blonde hair. And they both had blonde hair, which that's what threw me, because in the other movies they don't. But that was, I did not like that at all. I think they could have done so much better with that than what they did. The only thing I liked about it versus the original was you don't know anything about the nannies past like you did in the original. The original, you knew who she was, but in this one, you don't know who she is and why she's targeting this lady's family. So that was the only thing I liked about it. Other than that, I did not care for it at all. Trying to think of what else I've seen, because it is spooky season. Of course, I watch AMC's Fear Fest with all of the Halloween movies are on today. Of course, there's some I like better than others. And then I think the BBC channels have an all Stephen King day. So there's a lot of all the Stephen King movies are on today. So I'm trying to think of what else I've watched. I think that might be it. I have not gone back to the monster Ed Gein story. I watched a couple episodes. I have not gone back to that. There's just too many other things I want to watch instead. And that is pretty disgusting because I know Ed Gein's story and it is pretty disgusting and I don't know if I want to watch it. So, but if anybody has any input on that, if you watched the whole thing, let me know what you thought of it. I'm a big fan of Alfred Hitchcock too, so I thought, well, maybe, and then I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't know if I could stomach this. Very, very, very disturbed individual he was. So anyway, have a wonderful, wonderful Halloween. And if you think about it, if you can throw me a review either on Apple or a rating on Spotify, if you think about it. I'm hoping to get my podcast known, maybe share my podcast would really, really help. That helps a lot of support if you cannot join the Patreon or Spotify Premium. I fully understand. It does help to get reviews out or share my podcast because I'm not doing too well with it. I've had it now for 3 years. And I'm still in the very, very minimum of my listeners. And I'm hoping to get more. But I am happy to never have ads because if I ever have an ad, it's going to be a trailer for another podcast. Because I know how irritating it is when you get, you're listening to a podcast episode and then you get interrupted. I don't mind it as very much. Really, I don't, because I know podcasters have to make money at this. And I know that that's why they do it. But I just like having none, at least none in the middle of the episode. So anyway, have a good one, everybody. And I will see you next time.